Hello, welcome to another video. It's Lydia here and welcome to the new gaming room. So as you can see, things are coming along nicely. Now this will all be in another update video, which part 2 should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. If you haven't already, see part 1, which I'll leave a link to somewhere up here. In the meantime, while I'm setting everything up, I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to do a question and answer video. I put a call out on YouTube, Twitter and Instagram, and I got quite a few questions through, so they're pretty much all gaming related. So yeah, it's going to be lots of fun to answer all those questions. So without further ado, let's answer your questions. So first up, we've got, what game was your gateway drug to start collecting? For example, not growing up with PlayStation, maybe you want to try Chrono Cross, which opened the doors to me collecting all the other games I missed. What's your story? That's a pretty good one. I would say probably the Yakuza games, I reckon. I think just because I fell in love with those games so immediately. I did really enjoy collecting for the PlayStation 2. That's kind of why I started collecting the Yakuza games. I bought Yakuza 1 on the PlayStation 2. Really loved it. Got the remake on the PlayStation 4 and yeah, I was already starting to collect a lot beforehand, but that definitely sparked my interest in collecting like entire series and also getting like merch for things as well. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, there's probably no specific game. I think I just sort of went for a stage where I really fell in love with video games and that was it really. I just started collecting them and it's obviously really addictive, as you can see. What game did you initially hate but grew to love the most and what console was it on? Do you know what? I can't really think of a game that I really hated and grew to love. There's been lots of games that I've been on the fence about and not really enjoyed until towards the end. I'd say the only game that I can think of that was actually the reverse was Death Stranding. I started really enjoying that game and then I started hating it towards the end. But I can't actually think of a game that I hated and grew to love. I think it's just one of those things. If I hate a game that much, I'm just not going to play it through. So yeah. What games give you the feels, has made you the most emotional and is most in tune with your intuitive feminine side? What game has given me the feels? Oof. There's been quite a few. I think one of the few games that I've actually really cried at is another Yakuza game, and that was Yakuza 3. Do you know what, the character's name has escaped me. I can't remember the character's name, but there's a side character that dies in Yakuza 3 and I bawled my eyes out at that. Yeah, I think other ones that I feel were very emotionally stirring are games like Journey. Quite a lot of indie games are kind of a bit like that. Yeah, Journey is very stirring and definitely I think the music is a big part of that. It has a really sort of swelling orchestral music to it and yeah, it just gives you all the feels. And yeah, I can't really think of anything else at the moment, but yeah, definitely a lot of indie games have made me cry. What's your favourite handheld? Are there any games you no longer have that you absolutely regret selling? Okay, so there's 2 questions there. So what's my favourite handheld? I'd probably say I'd have to go for the Switch. I do really love the Vita. I think it's a really great console, but it just doesn't have enough games on it in my opinion. It's got a lot of Japanese RPGs, but I'm not super into RPGs. And yeah, it's just really hard to get a hold of really good games on the Vita. So I would have to go with the Switch just because it's so versatile. It's got such a great library on it. You've got loads of indie games. You've got loads of Nintendo classic games. You've obviously got the NES and SNES library and you've also got the N64 one. So there's just so much variety of games that you can play on the Switch. So, and obviously you can dock it to the TV as well, which is a big part of why I love the Switch, I think, as well, because I love playing handheld, but you don't always want to play handheld, and some of the games that are on the Switch work amazing on TV as well. So yeah, definitely the Switch. Any games that I no longer have that I really regret selling? I don't think so. I think maybe the reason for that is because I generally keep all my games. I don't really sell anything unless I really hate it, or unless it's worth so much money that it's kind of not worth keeping it because I know I'm not going to play it again. I'd say probably the only thing I really regret selling is I used to be really into The Sims when I was younger. So I had all of the Sims 2 and all the expansion packs on PC and I really loved those games, and yeah, maybe I regret selling those, but then again, I also don't really do PC gaming, so doesn't really matter. So yeah, I don't really regret selling any games because I just don't sell them. So yeah. What are your top 4 favourite video game systems? Ooh, that's so difficult. I mean, I think it's got to be, as far as modern ones, probably it's got to be the Switch and the PlayStation 4/5. To me, the kind of thing with PlayStation 5 is because it's not got a lot of exclusives yet, so that's why it's kind of on the fence for me with the PS4. As far as retro ones go, definitely the Dreamcast. I just love the Dreamcast. I love all the features that the Dreamcast has. It was, ahead of its time at the time when it came out, and I love the visual memory unit on it. I think that's really cute. And it's got some really great games, and also even the ones that aren't exclusive to the Dreamcast are normally a lot better than they are on other consoles. So yeah, Dreamcast, and then my other one, probably the PlayStation 2, probably because, there's so many other consoles that I really love, but as far as game library goes, which is obviously a big part of why you love a console, it's got to be the PlayStation 2, hasn't it? I mean, it's got really great graphics that still hold up pretty well today. So many amazing game titles on there, so many exclusives, and yeah, and they're still really cheap. So I think that's why I really enjoy the PlayStation 2 still, because you can pick up so many of the games for like £1 or £2. They're starting to go up in price a bit, but yeah, I think accessibility is a really good thing about the PlayStation 2, so I think that's probably why it's in my top 4 as well. Do you think the video games of the past are better than those today? Good question. The answer would be yes and no. I think there is something about retro games that are really, really special, and I think one of the reasons I love them the most is some of them are so unique, and you can really tell that it was a new format and people were just messing around with it and having fun with it, and it was just really creative before it got really, really commercialised. I think when games started getting to Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, that's when you sort of start to see a lot of games that are very, very commercialised, when you start seeing microtransactions, and a lot of the games are just really samey in that generation. So many first person and third person shooters, like way too many, and I think gaming lost itself a bit in that generation. But I do also think that when we get to the PlayStation 4 generation, there's so many amazing games. I don't think you can really compare like a 16 or 32-bit platformer that's a really solid platformer to games like Red Dead Redemption 2, because you just can't compare. Like, one is amazing graphically and the other is just like a really solid platformer game that's got, quirky features to it. So you can't really compare the two. So I would say it's a mix. There is something really special about retro games. Like I said, obviously I'm big into my retro games. I still really love modern games as well. And obviously modern games keep on coming. I think especially if you go into more indie games, if you really think that there aren't any good new games, I think maybe you need to play more indie games, because there are so many unique and quirky indie games that if you're getting bored of sort of these AAA big title games, then trying to go in more into like indie games, you'll find so many more unique titles. And I think maybe people just paint video games with sort of a broad brush without really looking into it too much. So I think there is a variety for everyone nowadays, and yeah, I think probably modern video games probably still a little bit better, just because there are so many formats that people can play around with and it's so accessible for everyone. So yeah, to me it's 50-50, I think. Long story short, what game has your favourite story? Ooh. There are so many games that have amazing stories these days. I would probably say for me, always comes back to the Yakuza games. I just think, especially with Yakuza 1 or Kiwami, I think with that one it's so dramatic, but it also balances it out with the drama and the suspense and the sort of the crime thriller-y bits in it. And then with all the side stories, they're all like really unique stories as well. And then you've also got all the quirky characters. To me, that's my favourite story. I don't know if it's the best as such, but that's one that I go back to a lot and that I really enjoy. I also think Red Dead Redemption 2, I've already mentioned that game, but I think for me that is objectively like one of the best video game stories that are out there, and one of the best video games, period. Just because it's so beautiful, so detailed, the story is really solid, but you can also explore the open world as well. Yeah, I just think there's so many things that they absolutely nailed with that game, and even though it's not one of my favourite games, I think objectively it probably is one of the best games out there. So yeah, it's between those two. But I really enjoyed Uncharted 4 as well. I like all of the Uncharted games, but I think Uncharted 4 has the best story out of all of them. I think it's also got the best gameplay as well. I really love that kind of Tomb Raider-y sort of vibe that it has to it, and I love that exploration and history and a little bit of fantasy in there, and you know, a little bit of supernatural. I especially enjoyed going back and looking at Nate's history and sort of his upbringing, especially with his brother, and yeah, I just thought the story in that one was really good and really solid. So yeah, it's definitely between those three, I think. What is the very first person shooter you played? Probably one of the Call of Duties. Can't remember which one. To be honest, I don't really like first person shooters. I'm not really that keen on third person shooters either. I used to be really big into Destiny, and I quite enjoyed the Halo games. It was probably COD or one of the Halo games, but like I said, I can't remember which one it was because I wasn't really that into them. And yeah, it's kind of in that, when I started gaming around the PlayStation 3 era, so there were so many first person shooters, and I just found that I was never very good at them, and so I just never enjoyed them, and I find them a bit boring after a while. So yeah, COD or Halo. Top 3 games that you absolutely hate. I don't like to say I hate any particular games. There are a lot that I really dislike and that I personally don't enjoy. I think for me, I don't enjoy the Call of Duty series at all. I know there are some really good games and people really love them, and that's fair enough, but I really just don't enjoy that kind of war type game. I don't like Fortnite. I'm not a big fan of this Battle Royale. I'm kind of glad they're sort of dwindling out a bit. Like I said, I know a lot of people enjoy them. I just find them a bit boring and I don't really get the hype. But you know, if you like them, you go for it. And third one, this one I kind of love to hate, but it's probably Death Stranding, and I mentioned it earlier. I really enjoyed it when I first started playing it, and I think the story is really cool and it's really unique, but the more it went on, the more I started hating it. It just went on for far too long, and I think where I really started hating that game was when you got to the mountain part and you had to trudge through the snow, and it was just so boring to get through. And I know that was part of the point, but before that I was really enjoying it even when it was slow going. It was just the snow part really got to me, especially when all the BBs were there. But yeah, it's an interesting game and I kind of do recommend it still, at least as an experience to play, because it is so unique. But yeah, probably is up there with my most hated games. What is your favourite game series? Well, I think everyone knows the answer to that. It's Yakuza or Ratchet and Clank. Yakuza I've spoken about so many times. You've probably heard me going on about it way too much, but yeah, again, story, characters, side missions, and just visually really love those games. And yeah, I'm not going to go and bore you with all the details because I know I've spoken about it so much before. Ratchet and Clank is also one of my favourite series as well. I've just played Rift Apart, which was an amazing game, and was one of the first games that I played on the PlayStation 5, and yeah, that was an amazing game, and visually it's really cool. I love the characters, I really enjoy the stories, and I think the weapons are amazing as well, and I love the fact that they change each game. It's just such an engaging and fun game, and I think it's one of the few modern sort of 3D platformer. I know it's not really a 3D platformer, but one of those style of games that really works well still on modern consoles. And yeah, whereas other ones that sort of were on the PlayStation 2 that have carried on, I'm not so keen on. But Ratchet and Clank, yeah, solid games. What is your favourite game? Again, I've kind of really answered that with game series. I think, yeah, it's Yakuza Kiwami. It's gotta be. Okay, let's go on to the only 2 questions that I got on Twitter, which is, what is your favourite Dreamcast game that you've played before? That's nice to get a specific console. There's so many games that I really like on the Dreamcast, but I think probably the fighting games are some of the best ones on the Dreamcast. I really enjoy Soul Calibur, I really enjoy Power Stone. There's so many really great fighting games on there. But as far as favourite game goes, I think probably Rayman 2. It just runs so smoothly, it looks amazing, and obviously you've got the platform, like that classic platformer, 3D platformer. Yeah, it's a really amazing game, I really enjoy it. Oh god, yeah, there's so many good ones on there, but yeah, probably Rayman 2 or Space Channel actually is a really good one as well. Sonic Adventure also gets a shout out as well, because I feel like it's one of the few 3D Sonic games that actually work really well. So yeah, probably those top ones. What series game got you into gaming? Is there anything you'd love to get into for the future of your gaming system or game series, etc.? I guess I've kind of already answered the what game got me into gaming. Maybe actually Sims got me into gaming. Like I said, I didn't really grow up with consoles, but I really enjoyed playing Sims on the computer. But I also used to really love playing like browser games on like Miniclip. I think it was Miniclip. Yeah, I used to love playing like browser games on those kind of websites as well. And oh yeah, there was also like this MMORPG that I really loved playing, and probably those actually were what got me into gaming eventually. And I can't remember what it was called, but it had like really fantasy vibes to it, and it was all sort of very cute little animated characters, and yeah, I just really enjoyed the combat in it. It was like a turn-based square strategy kind of game, and yeah, I just really enjoyed that, and like the socializing part of video gaming as well I really enjoyed. But yeah, probably Sims 2 got me into gaming, and then as time went on I got into sort of better games. Anything I'd love to get into for the future of gaming? That's a really difficult one, because I feel like I've got a lot of the ones that I've wanted to get. As far as retro consoles go, obviously me and Ant have now merged collections, and he had a lot of the consoles that I didn't have and that I was going to get eventually. Probably not a lot to get now. He also has an Xbox, and I've wanted to play all the Xbox exclusives for quite a while now, so that's probably going to be my next big project as such, is playing all the Xbox exclusives. Like I really want to play Gears of War, Fable, I want to go through all the Halos as well, so there's quite a few that I really want to get into, just because I didn't really grow up with Xbox, and I've always been a PlayStation girl, and then with more retro I've been more into Sega stuff. So yeah, definitely get more into Xbox and maybe play a bit more of the Nintendo classics as well, because I've also got NES, SNES, GameCube, N64 now as well, so definitely be playing a few more of the classic Nintendo games as well. So yeah, watch out for those. What's the most prized game or merch in your collection? Whew. Do you know what? I don't really know. I think I don't tend to buy games that are overly expensive. I think maybe, yeah, Grandia 2 I was really happy to get hold of. Other than that, I think it's probably just my Mega Drive collection in general. I really like my Mega Drive collection, I think because I've tried really hard to make sure the boxes are all in really good condition. A lot of them have got manuals. I think it's probably visually one of my favourite collections as well. I really love the boxes the Mega Drive games come in. I really like a lot of the artwork that's on the front of them too. So yeah, probably Mega Drive collection is one of my favourites. And then figure-wise, yeah, probably my little tubs, which are those rubber ducks, and I really love the Yakuza one, and I really love the Jet Set Radio one as well. I think they're really cool, and I was really happy that they made figures of those as well, because I feel like they're a bit more obscure. And then I think I just in general love all the little Final Fantasy ones, the little chibi figures that I've got. Those are super cute as well. So yeah, that's probably enough for the prize collection part. I can't think of anything to ask, but congratulations to you and Ant on moving in together. Well, thank you very much. That's very sweet of you. How many hours are you able to game a week these days? It really varies. I've mentioned before I work full-time, and I now work back in an office, so I have really limited time. I work 9 AM to 5:30 PM. So yeah, pretty much 5 days a week I'm not here, and then obviously when I get back home I've got stuff to do around the house, so I don't really have a huge amount of time to play games. I've only really been managing like, I'd say maybe like 5 hours a week recently. Hopefully it will get more. hoping to get more into my Switch again so that I can play that when I'm sat in bed or something, and maybe I'll start playing it at work on breaks again, so hopefully I'll start playing more again. But yeah, at the moment it's not been a lot, unfortunately, but such is adult life. Do you like first-person shooter games, and which is your favourite? I kind of covered this already. I don't like first-person shooter games at all. I used to really be into Destiny, and that's probably as close as I got to that. I kind of fell out of love with that quite a lot, and it's not something I ever really play at all these days, unless it's part of like a bigger story game. But yeah, I don't really play them at all, unfortunately. Since you love video games, have you thought about working in the industry? Yes, I have, and I would love to. But I think because I already have a career in graphic design, it's quite difficult to actually get a graphic design job in the video game industry. I have tried. I've applied for graphic design jobs that are at various companies, and unfortunately I never got through. I don't really want to change my profession or my career, and to be honest, like anything else in the video game industry doesn't appeal to me anyway. Like game testing and things like that doesn't appeal at all, but also kind of happy with what I do now. Do you use any apps or anything to keep track of your collection? No, but I keep meaning to. I did download an app which I think was called Game Eye, and that was really good. You could scan barcodes and keep a track of your collection. Ant's really good at keeping track of his collection. He has like spreadsheets of everything. But I'm not so good at that, but it is something I'm going to start doing because yeah, it starts to get a lot, and now that we've got two collections together, I kind of don't want to accidentally buy games that we've already got hold of, so yeah, we definitely need to start doing that more. So yeah, I definitely will start using an app to track my collection at some point. What was your favourite console games when you were a kid, and are they still your favourites? So as I've said before, I never really had consoles growing up. My first games console was PlayStation 3, but I did have handhelds, so I had the Game Boy, I had the Game Boy Advance SP, and I had DS and 3DS growing up. They all were bought with pocket money and stuff, so yeah, 3DS I got when it first came out, whereas all of the other consoles I was quite late to. The Game Boy I actually found in the back of a car rental, so I got that one for free, and then it was also really cheap at the time, so like you could buy them for like £10, so I had a couple of them, and I actually got rid of them, which I really regret, because now they've gone up a lot in price. But as you know, I do have Game Boys now, but I do regret selling a lot of the games that I had for that, so that was a bit unfortunate, and I really regret selling the Game Boy Advance too. But I've still got the 3DS. I really like the 3DS. I think it's a really good console. I don't play it a lot, so it's not really my favourite. As far as games go, again, I didn't really have any favourites. I'd say the only one that I kept going back to was Mickey Mouse. It was like a Game Boy platformer. I think it was just called Mickey Mouse. It was black and white, and you went through the castle, and I think there was like 100 levels. They were all coded, so I used to write down all the codes so I could go back to my favourite levels and replay them. And yeah, I used to really love that game. I completed it several times, which is unusual for me because I very rarely go back and replay games. So that's one I really enjoyed, and I'm actually looking for it again to rebuy it. So yeah, at some point I'll get that. But yeah, I don't really have any favourites from my childhood as such. Favourite handheld console and game, I've already spoken about handheld console. As far as games go, I don't know if any of my favourite games are actually on a handheld. I really enjoy a lot of the indie games that you can play on handheld. So like I mentioned before, the Switch has loads and loads of amazing indie games that you can get your hands on. I really enjoyed Short Hike. I thought that game was perfect. It was such a lovely little indie game. Really enjoyed like the journey aspect of it. And yeah, that was probably one of like my favourite indie games that I played on the Switch. I do really enjoy Mario Odyssey. I think that's a really great game, and yeah, there's lots of really classic games on there, but yeah, none of them are my favourites. If you were to live in the 90s, which console would you support during the console war? Nintendo versus Sega? Well, you probably already know the answer to this. Definitely be Sega. I think Nintendo's great. I think they've got some really amazing IPs. There's lots of games that I really love on Nintendo, but Sega's still my favourite. I don't know what it is about Sega, I just found that I really connected to it a lot more. Maybe because I've come to it as an adult. Maybe if I played Nintendo when I was a kid, I would much prefer Nintendo, but as an adult, I've always preferred Sega. So my instinct would be I'd support Sega, but also you can never know what one you'd go back to. But yeah, it would definitely be Sega, and I would definitely love to have got a Dreamcast on release because I think it's an amazing console, and I would have loved to have played it when it first came out and as it was as new technology. So yeah, Sega. What are your current collecting goals? I think at the moment I'm just wanting to focus on improving the library of games that I've got. So definitely Dreamcast is one of the ones I want to expand the most, but definitely there's quite a few Mega Drive games that I want to get. I was going to say PlayStation 1, but Ant has like tons and tons and tons of PlayStation 1 games. So for now, we've probably got more than enough on PlayStation 1. So yeah, I definitely think Dreamcast is the one I'd like to expand the most. Like I said, I really want to start getting more into Xbox and Nintendo, but again, because Ant's got so many of them, it's not really a collecting goal, it's more of like a playing goal that I want to play more of them. So yeah, and I think like I'd quite like to get a few more really rare games as well, sort of more of like what I call my holy grail games, which are games that are a bit too expensive that I usually can't justify buying. I think I'd quite like to get a few more of my holy grail games and try and get them in like amazing condition. So yeah, that will probably be one of them. So yeah. What game did you bounce off from once but ended up loving when you tried it again? I can't think of anything specific at the moment, but there's a game that I started playing and stopped and have never gone back to, and that's Breath of the Wild. And obviously now Breath of the Wild 2 has been announced, so I feel like now would be a really good time to get back into it. And I know I would love it if I got into it, but it's one of those that I've not played it for so long that I think I just need to restart it again. So yeah, probably Breath of the Wild will be one that I would really enjoy if I get back into it again. But yeah, I can't think of any other games that I've stopped playing, because usually if I stop playing a game, it's because I don't enjoy it, and I generally won't go back to it because there's so many good games to get into. So yeah. Okay, and that's all your questions. So thank you guys so much for leaving all your questions. I really enjoyed answering them, and I hope you enjoyed getting the answers too. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. And also don't forget to subscribe so you can see more content like this. And don't forget to follow me on social media. I will leave all the links down below as well. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!